Basically, if you have nobody who is depending on your income, no spouse, no kids, you're single, you have absolutely no debt of any kind, including a mortgage or any student loans or anything like that, and you have enough savings to cover any kind of funeral costs so that that wouldn't be a burden to parents or close loved ones, then you might not need life insurance. Everyone else does. Welcome to Finance Sister. My name is Anna, and this is my YouTube channel where we talk about everything related to money and a balanced lifestyle. First, I just want to preface that I am actually a licensed life insurance and property and casualty insurance producer. So I actually sold insurance for over a year. Didn't necessarily like it, but I definitely see the value in being able to hear from someone who does know what they're talking about, but not someone who's trying to sell you something necessarily. So what do I say that basically everybody needs life insurance? Well, for starters, it's really, really cheap to have, and chances are that someone connected to you is depending on your income or would be in a bad place financially if you passed. Even if it's a situation where you are single and you don't have anybody dependent on you, if you don't have enough savings, then funeral costs can be upwards of $8,000 to $10,000 now, and those costs are only going to keep going up with the cost of inflation. And so if you don't have that money set aside, then your parents or your siblings will be responsible for covering those costs. That is the biggest reason why you need life insurance, is that if something, heaven forbid, were to happen to you, that your family wouldn't be left having to foot the bill for a mortgage or the rent, or if you are a one-income family, or if you are actually living on two incomes and you need both of those to survive, then you need life insurance to be able to take care of your family or your spouse so that they're not having to struggle to get money together as soon as you pass away. Before I get into exactly how much you might need for your situation, I want to preface that I'm not going to go into details about what kind of policy you should get, because in my experience, I actually learned everything about the whole life policies, the universal life policies, variable annuities, everything like that. And still, I only ever sold people term life insurance because the whole life and the universal life and the survivorship policies, everything that you can go into with that, they don't quite pencil out. And in terms of life insurance specialists trying to sell you one of those, they phrase it as if you are going to get money back down the road, or that you have a cash value that you can pull out. But the amount of premiums that you will be putting into those policies is not going to be worth the difference in terms of how cheap term life insurance is. But the only reason I would say you might want to look into whole life or a universal life policy is if you have a history of fatal illness or a neurological issue, or if you have a very high chance of getting cancer, anything that would make you uninsurable. So mainly those things are diabetes and cancer. If you have something like that in your family, maybe you're in your 30s, you've already had a term life insurance policy, maybe it will be worth it to look at a whole life. But hopefully at that point you will be able to self-insure, you'll have savings, your spouse or your dependents won't be as in need of your income if you were to pass. Okay, so let's get into how much you might actually need in terms of term life insurance. You can buy 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, or 30-year term life insurance at most companies. And basically the way that life insurance works, it's kind of like shopping at Costco or Sam's Club, wherever you live. If you buy in bulk, it's actually a little bit cheaper the more you get. Essentially, if you are decently healthy, you don't drink a lot, you don't have serious weight issues, if you exercise regularly, then you will have really, really cheap insurance. When I first got my term life insurance a couple years ago, I didn't actually even have to get underwriting, which is something that they will do if you have your own personal life insurance, that it's not just through your work, which work is great. That's always going to be the cheapest, but they're only going to give you about 2 to 3 times your annual salary. So if you make $50,000 a year, then the most you would be getting for your death benefit would be $150,000. So if you don't have a mortgage and maybe you don't have any kids, that might be enough and you might feel safe enough having that. But just remember that if you were to get let go of that job, or you got fired or whatever, that insurance does not stay with you when you leave your work. So it is a good idea to have your own life insurance, or at least get a supplemental life insurance to meet the gap in terms of how much you need. So say if you actually get, your annual salary is $50,000, but your actual death benefit would be 3 times your annual salary, so that'd be $150,000. If you have 3 little kids, you have a spouse, you're a one-income family, you're gonna need more than $150,000. How much do you actually need for term life insurance? I would suggest that you do at least 5 to 10 times your annual salary, depending on where you live, how many dependents you have, and what that looks like, how old they are. If you have little kids, you are putting them in private school, or you plan to pay for their college, you're going to want to get a 10-15 year policy that's a little bit more. But once they're out of the house, they're no longer in college, you've gotten them through that, then maybe you can lighten up on your life insurance. And if you're in a place where you don't have a mortgage, or you're later on in life, then you also could use a smaller policy, just depending. But you can also use life insurance as a blessing for if you do pass, leaving your kids or your grandkids or your spouse a certain amount of money. A quick example, say you have a mortgage of $200,000, you have both people work, so say you're a couple, both people work, one makes $50,000, the other makes $80,000. You're both going to want life insurance for the other person. Just because the person who has the higher income, that doesn't mean they're the only person that needs to get life insurance. The other person is still putting money into your living expenses, and you will need that income if they pass away. Or if you don't, then maybe you don't need to have as much life insurance on that person. But you still need to be able to cover that cost of the mortgage. That's a huge blessing, and $200,000 of term life insurance for anybody who is healthy, active, and under the age of 50 is going to be probably around $40 a month or less. Going back to that example, I didn't quite finish it. So say one person makes $80,000, the other makes $50,000, and you have a $200,000 mortgage where it's in both of your names. You're married. So essentially, the person with $80,000, you would want to get 5 to 10 times your annual income, just depending on where you're at in life. If you have kids currently or you plan to, then that means you're getting $200,000 plus $800,000. Say you just do it times 10 for to basically cover 10 years after you would pass, if they needed that, they were in that stage of life where they needed that income for that period of time. So essentially, that person would get $1 million on them as a life insurance policy. That's a little bit much if you don't have any kids, honestly, but in terms of life insurance, I don't think that there's really too much. It just depends on what your premium would be per month and how much that's worth it. But again, if you buy in bulk, like at Costco, then it's actually going to be on the more affordable side. Person who makes $50,000, they might only need to get $500,000 plus the $200,000. So their life insurance policy would be closer to $700,000 instead of the $1 million, because that other person is not depending on the same amount of income if they were to pass. So that's kind of how you can factor that in. But even if you have a couple and then you have kids and you have a stay-at-home mom, you still want to get life insurance on the stay-at-home mom, even if she's not bringing in a physical number. Because let me tell you, the cost of childcare, cleaning, food, going grocery shopping, all of those things add up a lot of money. And when I was quoting people for life insurance, there was one family that had 4 kids, and they ended up needing the same amount of money on the stay-at-home mom as they did on the husband, who was working full-time, because of how much it would cost to take care of all of those little kids and keep up with daily activities and things that we don't always think about because we don't get paid to do them. I'm currently working on putting together a questionnaire of basically helping you decide how much money or how much life insurance you actually need on each person. And so that'll give you a much clearer idea on what you need personally. This is just a rough overview of different scenarios and dependents that might need your income if you pass. And if you have any other questions, and if you would like to be notified of when I put that questionnaire below in the description, then just comment below and let me know, and I should have that up in the next week or two. Thanks for watching this video, and please don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notifications on when more videos are posted.